All right, welcome ladies and gentlemen to week number 69, Open Q&A. My name is Mr. McLogan, and the topic for this week's live stream is how I catch some cheaters in my classroom. And I guess you think that people would not cheat inside of a classroom, but guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Each and every year, I always catch a cheater, always. And I think that has been the mainstay for like all of my years of teaching. There's always been people that have been cheating. And, you know, that's one thing that I'm going to go and ask you guys on the community, on my community chat to say like, hey, have you guys cheated before? You know, like where you guys stand. And I think an overwhelming 80% of you acknowledge that you have cheated inside of your test. So we got to talk about some things about that. I'm not sure if it's, I appreciate your honesty, but yeah, you know, there's some important things to kind of dissect. And then I will definitely let you guys know about some of the things that I have done inside of the classroom to kind of keep my students on their toes. And one of the things I will start off with is I think one of the things that is, you know, let's kind of talk about like the purpose of cheating or why people feel like it's need to cheat. And there is a part of me that really does believe that a lot of students, feel like the pressure and they feel like cheating is like one of those things that they almost have to do to be able to like survive. And I think one of the things that we need to do a better job of is controlling the kind of pressure that we're putting on our students and our teachers of this like high stakes, testing and everything like that. I think students put an enormous amount of pressure. They feel like if they don't pass a grade or if they don't get a certain grade, I have students that have dropped my class because they didn't get an A. Like they don't get an A. They're like, boom, I'm out. Like, I'm not even going to try in your class. And I'm like, whoa, that's not why we're taking my class, just to get a certain grade. But that's the way that it's kind of been turned into, is for students to be able to get a certain grade or to get a certain, grade on a test. And it's like, if they don't get it, then it's like, boom, I'm out. And I don't think that's right. So I think there's definitely some adjustments we need to make as far as on how we are testing our students, so they don't feel like that this pressure of like, if they don't get a certain grade or a certain score, then they're just going to, quit, because that's what's driving a lot of students, to cheat. And I think they have a lot of pressure. They put pressure on themselves. They have pressure from teachers. They have pressure from their friends. They have pressure from their parents. And then also there's real money that's at stake, right? For scholarships and getting into colleges. And so it's a lot. Now, a couple things that have happened. COVID, right? So what COVID did is it kind of like took away a lot of the testing that we've been having. And one of the things that I, saw a lot of the comments, or I think one of the commonalities that I saw from students, is they haven't really always, maybe thought of themselves as a cheater or really cheated, but like since I've been doing at home learning and like testing, kind of cheating became very, convenient to kind of work on, right? So you still have the same kind of pressures, but then obviously it's a little bit easier now to kind of cheat. It's a little bit easier to go ahead and, share answers or to look up answers and everything like that, because not everybody's full instruction. So let me give you a little story of the way that I caught some cheaters last year. And because, the same thing, I wrote this in my email to everybody on my email list this week. And if you are interested in joining the email, you can definitely go and check a look at submit a question, and that will sign you up for the email list, where I'll, just kind of let you know a little bit of insider status of what I like to talk about each and every week. But so anyways, one of the things I did last year was, I taught my instruction. Oh, well, thank you so much, Anthony. What's up, Pop, Mr. McLeod? Well, I'm just starting giving away some reasons on how I catch some cheaters. Nothing big. But so one of the things that I was doing, so I taught our last chapter, and then I had to give a test. And I'm like, all right, so it's COVID, right? And there's like, not really sure what I'm supposed to be doing. This is kind of this weird, uncharted territory, even as a teacher for myself. And again, like you have to be like understanding with the students, right? They're taking pre-calculus. At least that's what I taught last year. And so I'm trying to like, well, I got to make sure they still are, knowing the information, right? But however, I got to be understanding of the situation. Like now we're going from completely in person to all online. So I was like, well, all right. So I said, all right, I'm used to what I have done. A couple things I've already done to prevent students from feeling like they have to cheat is I give them a cheat sheet. So each and every test, I give my students a cheat sheet. And I'm like, guys, I don't want you to feel like this pressure that you have to memorize things. I don't want you to take a little piece of paper and write down formulas and put it in your computer and you put it in your calculator. Like I remember that when I was in high school, and I'm like, there's no reason that anybody needs to, put their integrity on the line to remember a formula, right? So I'm like, guys, put whatever you want to on a cheat sheet, on a piece of paper, and take that with you on the test. Now, I do look at those cheat sheets, make sure students aren't like copying answers from a previous class or anything else. But as far as like, if they want to remember any formulas or work, like it's there for them. Like they have that ability. So my students are very used to taking a test with having that kind of information with them. However, I knew students were going to share answers. I knew that was going to happen. So I was like, guys, that's not fair. That is not fair to get a grade, an A in this class if you've been like a B student or a C student or a D student. And then all of a sudden, just because of I'm taking a test online, that you're all of a sudden getting an A. So what I did is I didn't tell the students, but I gave each and every class So I was using a software where I could assign the students a test. And so I didn't tell them what it was, but the nice thing about doing everything online is that I could assign them like their own version. So it took a while and I didn't really like doing it, but I made, I think, 4 different versions of the test. And then what I was able to do is I was able to put students in certain groups. And so, you kind of know as a teacher, like what students kind of talk to what other students. And so I just made 4 different versions, assigned students their own, or assigned 4 different groups, not necessarily by class. And so I just gave them, and I didn't tell them like, usually like when you say like on a Scantron, like, oh, this is version A or version B, like they're like, okay, like, and they'll kind of check it out. So, but that's what I did. And I probably caught 4 students that didn't even bother to make sure that they had a different version than their friend, because they just blatantly copied their other friend's answers. It was as clear as day. And they're like, hey, they got like a 0%, of course, because they had all the wrong answers. And they said, I think there's something wrong, with my test. And I looked at them like, oh, well, you had all the correct answers for version A, but it was like, it wasn't like you got the wrong version. Like you could see exactly their test. And so I offered to have a conversation further with, to look into it further, but none of the 4 students that got caught cheating ever took me up on that offer. They happily accepted their grade and then just kind of moved on from there. And so I just kind of took that as a grain of salt. It was, I didn't treat it like a true kind of cheating kind of scenario, just because of this kind of situation we were in. But I was happy that they accepted it, and we just kind of moved on from there, because obviously if they would have wanted to further talk with me, then we probably would have gone down some certain steps. So, I'm not sure if that was the right way or the wrong way to approach it, but I thought it was kind of the right way. I don't appreciate people cheating in my class. I actually take it very personally when students do cheat in my class, but I also understand that students feel that I don't know, the pandemic might have been a reason for them to feel like they could get away with things, and which is not right. But everything impacted students a little bit different as well. So before I get into some of the things I'm doing that I did this year, I'll let you guys know about. I want to kind of see how things have been going in with you guys. So I just want to see. Looks like I have Antone and Will and Forever Thoughtful and Zokru and Jason. Well, hello. Addie, thank you so much for joining in. And Wanso Johnson, Forever Thoughtful. Thank you so much, guys. Generally hard not to cheat at home. Yeah, I think some of the at-home tests is, kind of hard. Like, to me, it doesn't really matter if I'm giving, I don't consider students using their notes cheating, because here's the thing that I do. When I give students, I've been giving my students a cheat sheet for maybe 4 years, right? So now a couple things I have found on students' cheat sheets is I have noticed when I give them the cheat sheet, they would write down the answers, like they'd get the Scantron answers from somebody else in a previous class. So I do have to check their cheat sheet. But besides those students that are just trying to blatantly cheat right there, The cheat sheet, I don't really consider cheating. I mean, like, because I give my students actually credit for creating a cheat sheet, because the way that I look at it is if you spend your time and effort creating a cheat sheet, that is actually studying for the test. That is going to be preparing. That is going to be preparing yourself for the test, and that's actually studying. And I got this idea. I've talked about it on live streams before, but I got this idea when I was taking a college class, and the creation of creating the cheat sheet, I was amazed because I actually never really used the cheat sheet. It was this idea and this process of creating this cheat sheet, writing down all the formulas, writing down all the examples that I wanted. And, like, I took it seriously. I was like, wow, you're going to let me put whatever I want to on a sheet of paper? So I spent hours creating this cheat sheet. And the cool thing is I took the test or the exam and, whatever it was, and I like barely used the cheat sheet. And that was like a light bulb came off to me. I was like, that was a really good idea. And that's something I've incorporated as a teacher because, when students go through that process of creating a cheat sheet, that's studying. Besides doing example problems and practicing problems, that is studying right there. And that's usually helps students out, and again, like if a student if they just can't remember the Pythagorean theorem or whatever formula, that they need, I'm happy to let them write that down. Happy to have them write that down on a, sheet of paper and use it there. All right. So let's go and see. So I'll go and get to my, what I did this year. You're very similar. You're very welcome, James. And Devin, if I was high school student, start teaching, not assign 3 times more work. I don't think I've assigned more work, I think, since the pandemic. Or at least this year. I mean, we've been kind of in person. So, and actually all of our work, I've been signing my students that have been turning it in online just to kind of reduce paper transfers. So my work has actually been less this year. So I apologize that you've had more work. All right, guys. And I will get to some questions. We do have about 5 questions that I will get into for you guys as well. So we'll go and get to those after we talk a little bit more cheating, because I still want to go over some of the things that I did. Well, thank you so much, William. Just want to say, shall I go for a brighter color? I greatly appreciate your super chat. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. Jason has another tip. So do you have any general tips for teaching? How do you make your class interesting while making sure students who have questions ask them and everyone is learning? How do you motivate your students to learn? Wow, Jason, that's a great question. There's something actually I was going to talk about on the live stream, but I'll talk about it right now because you asked the question. I think one of the things that a light bulb moment came on for me this year is, so typically when I teach, I always, I'll always like instruct, right? I'll like show an example or, some kind of like entry to like get students engaged in the lesson, right? And then then there's like the working time where students are engaged. The students are actually doing the problems. And typically pre-COVID last year, like I'd have students go up to the board or they'd work in groups and like they're active, they're talking. We had that conversation piece. And this year it was very difficult because students are like in rows. They had like these dividers and they're wearing masks, and it's like, dang, this sucks. This is very difficult to get into. So your question right there, Jason, like really hit a nerve with me. And one of the things that I found out, even though when I used to do that, even last year, there's always those students that, and this kind of goes into the cheating part too. The students wouldn't do problems, or because they didn't want to feel stupid. They didn't want to feel inferior. And I feel like that's also another reason why people cheat. They're kind of getting known as maybe they got a good grade. Maybe they're really good, really smart in, I don't know, biology or, psychology or whatever class. So then people are just going to assume that they have to be good in whatever other math class, right? Like they're the smart kid. You know what you're doing. You can like handle this stuff. And so when they start to get confused or not like be able to match up to that, there's that inferior that they're like, oh, I need to like do better. I need to like match up to these other kids to feel better. So, and if they can't figure it out on their own, sometimes they like resort to cheating. And I think that's a lot of times that I see with students inside class, for that engagement, they don't want to try. They don't want to feel stupid in front of their friends, or they don't want to feel like they don't want to let their teacher know that they don't understand something. So one of the things that I started using this year was Desmos and Desmos activities. And one of the cool thing about the Desmos activities was it allowed students to be anonymous as they're working through the problems, as well as to submit their work. Because even though I would encourage students to like go up to the board, I'm like, who cares? Like put up your group's answers. students would still not even put up their group answer because they didn't want to feel dumb, or they didn't want to feel like they were part of a group that didn't get the answer right. And even though it's like it wasn't a reflection on them at all. But the cool thing about the Desmos answers or the Desmos activities is students could post their answers. They were anonymous. And I saw students actually so much this year start to engage, start to actually try problems. And I feel like it was just kind of like they didn't have to feel like they were going to be judged by the teacher or by anybody else, even though I would never judge students for getting something wrong. But I think there was that self-esteem that they were carrying with that if they were to get the problem wrong. So it was really cool. They got to, and I think to kind of give you a shorter answer was to foster that environment where students feel comfortable making those, just being wrong, making those steps where they are getting uncomfortable and they're vulnerable, learning math and exploring. And I think that is where like the true kind of learning comes in, because if you have students that are just walking around scared to try to do math, that's what you're going to foster an environment where students are just going to cheat just to get the best grade, and if you're making students feel stupid because they don't understand something, then students are going to like, I'm not going to try. I'll just cheat and get the grade I want and then move on and get out of your class because I don't really like the way I'm teaching. I'm not learning something you need. So I think really trying to create that environment where students want to impress you and learn and challenge and try things, I think that's going to be the best environment for you. So thank you so much for that. That felt good to actually get off my chest for that. I said, I'm currently a full person learning. I have some seemingly less work. Before I feel really bad for people who have fully remote classes. Yeah, I think the remote classes is very difficult for students. It was difficult just beginning of the year. I can't even imagine trying to do this all year. Kudos to all of you guys that have done that for sure. Teachers and students and parents. On average, have student grades decrease or increase since moving to online? Do you think EGG has done anything with that? My grades have increased. I softened my grades a little bit. I didn't, not so much to like cheating. Like students I think have definitely cheated more in my class because of the online environment. But I think that also I just haven't required as much. Like I did lower my demands across the board just to I still kept you still got to know what you're doing, obviously, and especially for my upper level classes. But I did reduce a little bit more of the demands that I had from just because the instruction comparatively to what I did last year, the students aren't getting the same experience. And I didn't feel it was fair to compare them or treat them with that same knowledge. So I still have the, same tests, quizzes, same kind of like class setup, but I did reduce some things to kind of make it a little bit more flexible for students. I would say probably my flexibility has definitely increased, when students are missing class, because I have students every week. There's students that are gone for quarantine, 10 days, boom. And it's like, even though I have videos online, watching a video online is not the same as being inside my class, right? And so I've had to be flexible a lot with students on not only their grades, but then also what I expect for them to be able to do for their tests and quizzes. I have not used WebAssign for that. Okay, we learned two subject topology. Topology and circular linearism. I'm not really sure from that. Andy, I would say no. That's something I allow my students to be able to do as well. Like I allow my students, like when they create a cheat sheet, they can write down whatever they want to on a sheet of paper. Like literally anything they want to on a sheet of paper. So definitely fine with me on that. Yes, Jason, I would definitely agree with that. Very good. All right. So just to let you guys know, if you are new to the live stream, these questions that I have here have been submitted through my Google. I posted a link here up top. I pinned that link. So if you're interested, always sending over some questions. We'll kind of see how much time I use. I usually go live each and every Sunday at 9 p.m. for roughly about an hour. It always kind of depends. I got school tomorrow, so I do got to make sure I get some time, and I'm on Eastern Standard Time. So I got a at least wrap things up and head to bed. But anyways, I do try to answer questions, and sometimes I will be able to get to your guys' questions as you post them inside the chat. But do wait till at least I get over these questions that I have presented so far. And then if you would like to have a question that's going to be answered not until next week, because right now these are all questions that have been submitted to the forum prior to this live stream. But if you'd like to be able to have a question and maybe interact with some other students that will help them out, you can definitely go over to my Discord server where you can post your questions inside of certain channels and be able to answer a question, help other students with their questions, and get a little bit more feedback quicker than what I'm going to be able to do each and every week. So that Discord server is definitely growing, and I really look forward to seeing you guys on there as well. I think it's been a great benefit for students that kind of need a little bit faster help. I mean, I always love answering questions on Sunday night. That's, this is 69 weeks in a row that I have been doing this. So not just 69 weeks in a row. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very happy to do that because there's a couple weeks that I did not want to go live. There's a couple weeks that I was not in my home little office or studio. So I had to adjust, but I did it. And I am very happy to be consistent on that because that's one thing I want to do, portray to you guys as far as learning math, being consistent. And that's where you guys are going to see some growth. All right. So I live in Orange Park. Oh, awesome. Prince, yes. Jacksonville. Well, I'm over at Mandarin, so just right across for you. All right. This man never ages. It's a crazy thing. I was talking about that. I can't remember if somebody said something. I was talking about the other stream. It's really cool. You don't really think about that when I started making videos in 2010. But I think my goal, so I always tell my students that my goal as a teacher was always to be a teacher at least long enough to say that I've been a teacher longer you've been alive, right? So that was always my goal. Hey, I've been a teacher longer you've been alive. I always thought that was a cool thing. And 2007, so that'd be, I have about 13-year-olds, 13, 14-year-olds. Yeah, roughly. So 13, 14, my freshmen that I have are fall right around there. So I'm right at that age now. Then the other thing I want to do is same kind of thing. I've been making videos longer than you've been alive. I think that's kind of it's not really that cool of a statement, but I always thought that was kind of cool. Wow. Cause people were whoa, this video was made in 2010. Yep, I've been making YouTube videos for that long. It's, definitely long, for me as well. And I do not teach at college. I teach at a high school from there. All right. So let's go ahead and get on to some of the math questions. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to talk about what I did this year. So hopefully my students aren't listening, but they probably are. Maybe not. I don't think I would. Maybe. We'll see. They'll let me know. All right. So let's go and talk about what I've done this year. So this year, so a couple things. So let me give you a couple tips that I did because I completely forgot about this. All right. So I recently did the same trick thing. So there's a couple things I like to do. First of all, as far as cheaters, it's very obvious. I'll just let you guys know. If your hands are not where they're supposed to be or your eyes are not where they're supposed to be, it's very obvious that something is not going right. Okay. So just a little teacher trick here, guys. If your hands are not writing, they're not where they're supposed to be, underneath your desk, right? Or you're kind of fidgety, then you can definitely see that something's going on. Now, you might say, well, my teacher doesn't see me or those. A lot of times I'll pretend that I'm looking somewhere else, but I'm just really watching out of the corner of my eye. So you can definitely see when students are, being very cautious with how they're moving their hands and their eyes. If they're looking on somebody else's paper and everything else, it's very obvious. Now, sometimes it just kind of depends if I'm going to call them out on it, or sometimes I'll just make some noises to kind of let students know, or maybe I'll get up and, and walk around next to them and maybe stand next to them for a little bit longer. Just some kind of a little obvious kind of steps to be hey, I'm aware of some things don't really look very like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Okay. So just remember when you're constantly making eye contact with your teacher because they keep on looking at you, that's not a good sign. When your hands are below your desk or fidgety, that's not a good sign. So I'm always looking for that. And sometimes I'll look away or pretend I'm working on my computer or can pretend I'm grading papers. And really, I'm just watching students out of the corner of my eye. So just to let you guys know, that's something that is a teacher trick 101, right? It's something you develop as the time. So what I did though is for my students is I always like to be careful taking multiple choice tests because I always like to switch up the numbers with students. Sometimes I'll create multiple versions of the test per class period. Sometimes I'll even give multiple versions inside the own class. And sometimes it's just me switching around the answers where students don't even know. It looks like the exact same test, but you just switch around the answers. And then sometimes I will actually switch up like the numbers of the problems, like actually move the numbers. Like usually the first page I'll leave the same. So then if students are looking at it, they'll usually like, you always do like that quick glance, like, oh, is this the same test as the other person? Okay, yeah, it is. And then the other like second page is when we'll change things up. So usually every test I do something different. Usually for the first couple, I always leave it the same because I want students to, kind of get that idea. And then I start changing things up to kind of see what students are doing. So one thing is I'll make a couple versions. One time I'll make a version for every different class. Then I'll give different versions within the same class. And it kind of depends on like, you can kind of I'll give a version maybe to like one row, or you could do versions like via like, I don't know, if it's a male or a female, give them different versions. Like, again, same question, same problems, but just like the answers are different. So therefore, like who got which version. And then of course, like I don't portray the students are getting different versions. I know based on like how I arrange the questions, if like A is like this one question or A is in this another question. So you can just go ahead and check into this. What are you guys doing? What is that? E. I don't know. Okay. All right. And then the other thing is, what else will I do? Oh, and then so the other thing I recently did. So I did everybody got a different test, and I didn't catch any cheaters. So I was like, hey, I was pretty happy. Now I did already catch a cheater that had their own little cheat sheet. Even though I gave him a cheat sheet, he decided to use his own cheat sheet, which was actually the multiple choice solutions from another one. And so anyways, so I caught him on there, but then I was like, all right, so students are sharing answers. Fair enough. So I said, all right, for the next test, I decided to give each class a different version of the test. Same test, but just moved around the answers. And, but I didn't catch any cheaters. It looks like everybody was fair enough. They're keeping things, stripped. So I was happy about that, but I wasn't satisfied. So then on the last test, the most recent one, I gave students different versions, or at least I said I was giving them a different version. I said, make sure you put on like, version A, version B, version C, version D. So then they were thinking that they were getting a different version. And hopefully that was at least going to like quell some students like sharing some answers or sharing, their test, but the test was exactly the same. I just wrote in the A, B, and C or D, but I wanted them to kind of keep them on their toes and at least like think about, if they were going to get those second versions or anything like that. But so that's basically what I do as a teacher. Definitely look into the different versions. And again, sometimes I make it aware, like they're like, it's pretty obvious. Sometimes I move around the numbers. Sometimes I move around the answer choices. Sometimes students know. Sometimes students don't know. Sometimes it's the first. Sometimes it's the whole test. Sometimes it might just be like the last page. So it's always in, and sometimes it's within each class, or sometimes it's, within the classes that I'll give them different versions. And so just some different things that, you got to keep students on their toes as well, because, I know I'm getting challenged as well, right? Photo math and everything else, like it's a constant battle, right? Before the students. But I truly believe, guys, there's a lot of students that add the comments that, you're cheating, I call it the same thing. You're like, you're cheating, you're only cheating yourself. And I understand a lot of students' stress, and I understand a lot of students' motivation for feeling that cheating is their best and their only method. But I really, really do believe that everybody is going to, let me see how I'm going to phrase this. I really feel like putting in your best effort and owning up and acknowledging what you can do is it's going to play out in the end. If you're going to cheat, if you're going to pretend that you know what you're doing, it's going to show up, right? It's like, I have this happen to students all the time. I get students that come into my, classes and they're like, oh, I've had A's or B's my whole life in math. And it's like, okay, great. So, and then the student will come in and they literally will know nothing. And I'm like, what are we doing with ourselves? Like the rubber meets the road, right? I mean, it's going to catch up to you. So, you know what? I want you to always think about, we know when you make a decision like that, you're putting your integrity on the line. And I think it's something it's a very serious thing to move from. And I really just encourage students to do the best you can possibly do. And I always tell students all the time, do the best you can possibly do. And that's all I ask of you. Okay. I don't need you to cheat to get an A. I don't need you to, make sure you're looking good in front of me or your friends or anything else. Put in your best effort and it's going to be okay. But if you're just going to fake it, it's going to come back to bite you. It's going to eventually come up, and it might not come up this year. It might not come up next year, but you know what? It's eventually, because again, here's the thing too. It might not come back to you into math. And I think here's one thing that's, here's really something that is, I can't remember what the quote is, or if somebody told me, well, thank you, Ethan. Thank you. Hi again, Mr. McGowan. Have you ever cheated before? Ooh, throwing this on me. Well, I guess for a super chat. I do remember I don't remember a specific time. I do remember, I think on like my 4th grade spelling test, I remember cheating. And then, cause I couldn't remember the letters. And I think I remember like getting somebody else's answers from them. And then I do remember in high school physics, we had like the previous student's test. So we'd like review it beforehand. And then we didn't know if the teacher was going to give us the same test, but she usually did. Or at least a very similar like version of that test. So, I guess fair enough. It was cheating. We just had somebody else's old tests and the teacher decided to regurgitate them. So, or at least regurgitate a lot of the same problems. So, fortunate on that, but I can say besides those 2 instances, I don't remember another instance where I did. I can say for a fact, once I got to college and I took math seriously, I did not cheat at all. Well, thank you, William. Another stupid. How do you make a good cheat sheet that isn't overloaded with too many notes? Okay. William, I would say I think the main thing is like with the cheat sheet, that's the whole point of making a cheat sheet is overload it with your notes, overload it with everything that you want to know from your notes. Now, let me kind of back up. So every test that I have for my students, I tell them to make a cheat sheet. Now, again, like if you're going to you want to write down stuff in your cheat sheet that you need to know, right? You don't want to for instance, I wouldn't put the Pythagorean theorem on my cheat sheet. I know the Pythagorean theorem, right? Now, again, obviously, depending on where you are in your class, you might want to put the Pythagorean theorem, or maybe you want to have an example of doing the Pythagorean theorem. So I always tell students, like, put down the stuff that you need to know. Like if you are taking a test and you want to have an example with you, like what is it exactly you want to remember or have right next to you on that test? That's what I want you to put on the cheat sheet. And so what I do for students is, every chapter we did a cheat sheet, and now we're getting ready for our final exam. Students have over between 8 and 12 cheat sheets. And if they did them right, that's a lot of hours and a lot of content that they put on that cheat sheet. And so what I would recommend with students is now is the time that you can take that information and now like whittle it down, like get it down into exactly what you want for that final exam or that. And yeah, so I totally get the idea of like overloading the information. Maybe make a couple of cheat sheets, right? Maybe make a couple of cheat sheets for like, semester 1, semester 2, or quarter 1, quarter 2, like, or 2 chapters, like, but again, there's no point in putting down stuff that you already know, right? If you know what a graph looks like, or how to do something, don't put that on your cheat sheet. Like you're confident on that. If there's something you're like, I sometimes forget this, or I get it confused, put that stuff on your cheat sheet. That's what you want to have on that cheat sheet. And again, like just literally the process of writing down the stuff on the cheat sheet is going to help you study. It's going to help you do better at the end of the year. And that's what I want you to get out of creating that cheat sheet. I let my students use the cheat sheet on their test, but the idea of actually creating the cheat sheet is where the value comes from. Now, the one thing I want to get to before I got knocked off from the super chat, again, thank you very much, Ethan and William. But so the one thing I want to let you guys know of, and this is something that's really kind of struck a chord with me, because I think it, when I talk about one thing I tell about whenever I have a student that cheats, I said, all right, if you get caught cheating in my class, obviously we could ruin your life. Like if you're going to college, like you are, we could go through everything and like you could lose whatever college or scholarships you have. Like it is bad, depending on the school and, what you're going into. But for me personally, one of the biggest things that I think is, really for students or just like personally from human to human is your like integrity and your trust. And so I always tell students every single time that, if I catch some student, I'm just like, all right, you've been caught, right? And we'll have a conversation depending on the situation and like how they were caught cheating and what they were doing. But regardless of that, where we go with the class or the punishment, right? I always say you've lost trust with me. I cannot trust you for the rest of the year. And for the rest of the year, you have to take a test right in front of me. And I said, that's just it. And I'm sorry, I can never trust you again because you have now betrayed my trust. And I don't, I've lost, you have lost your integrity to take tests on your own in front of me or away from me. And so, for the rest of the year, you have to do this. Now, some students might say, well, it's like, I'm just cheating on a test. Like I just need the grade. I have a bad teacher. It's COVID, blah, 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 blah. But, here's the thing that I want you guys to understand. If you're going to cheat on your test, right, and you're going to get away with it and you're going to feel good about it. And you're like, it's just a cheat. But guess what? You're going to start cheating in other areas of your life. And it's the truth. If you're going to cheat one place, you're going to start cheating in other places because you're going to get away with it. You're like, oh, that's how I got my A in math. I'm good to go, blah, blah, blah. And guess what? The next time you have something that is going to be a challenge to you or where you don't want to do something, you're going to look to cheat. And you're just going to keep on doing it. And you're going to start cheating in other ways in your life. And again, eventually, it's going to come up and catch you. And that's the least situation that you want to be in. So be very, very careful with your choices, ladies and gentlemen. I know that, some people, a lot of you have cheated this year, at least that you are willing to share with me on your dashboard or on my community post. And I take a little, lighthearted with it and have a little joke here and there because, I think with math, sometimes it's like acceptable to be bad at math, right? It's acceptable to, I bombed that test, right? Or, I cheated on that test. Like it's kind of acceptable for math to kind of take that rap, but be very, very careful with your decisions and your choices because they do play out in other areas of your life. And we really, really want you to, think about when you are making those decisions, sometimes, like I said, if you're in high school or in college, like they can have lasting impacts from you. So be very thoughtful of your decisions and just realize, even if you don't perform as best as you want to, and you feel like the cheating is the only way out, like, put in the work, like one decision or one bad grade is never going to define you. Right. And you can always come back from things. But I think the main thing is like owning up to who you are and the effort that you put into things and put in the work, put in the effort. And let that show. But if you're going to hide things behind a cheating or doing that, it's always going to come back to you. It's always going to. So just be very careful with those decisions. And Starboy, thank you very much. What are your thoughts on Math Papa? Algebra through Calc? I'm not sure. Algebra through Calc. That is the current high school kind of trajectory, but I'm not really sure what my thoughts are on that. I think there's definitely needs to be some changes to the way that we are teaching and why we're teaching students math, right? You think about a lot of the stuff that, I'm going to be going over today, like students like, why am I learning this? Like, why do I need to know this kind of stuff? Right. And yeah, it's kind of like an interesting scenario. Like we need people to be really good at calculus. We need engineers, right? We need people to go into STEM, to data science and all that kind of stuff. But there's also a lot of students that we don't need to be going to that. And we don't need to be forcing them into these narrow routes of like, you have to pass this with this grade, or you're not going to be successful in life. And I think that's kind of been something we've sold for a lot of students in society. And that's what students have just, kind of believed has needed to be the case. And I don't believe that's true at all. So I think there's definitely needs to be some changes in our math education program from there. Guys, you only need to answer a question once, and then I can answer it for you. But, why did it go? There you go. All right. Do you have a good learning algorithm? Well, yeah, I would say doing practice problems, practice, Mikhail, practice, and then doing a cheat sheet. Definitely think that's one of the best ones you can do. Realistically, can I turn around and get a 3.5? I do not know, Dre. I would definitely talk with your guidance counselor on that, but I would say put in the work. Hey, Charles, good to have you. Charles, I'll get you then. It's glad you could show up now. All right, cool. I do math here, so cheating is an option, and I do algebra too. Oh, it's good. I'm glad cheating is not an option. It shouldn't be an option, but I know, a lot of people are going to resort to it, and it's been really, it's been very terribly hard for a lot of students, and I don't want to discount anything from there, but I do always want students to, realize that their choices have consequences, and yeah, you really got to think through those consequences before you're going to be making choices that can really, have some dire consequences for you. Nobody hit me. A couple weeks back ago, I was on a bicycle ride and I flipped over my handlebars and hit my face. And it was actually really bad. If you look back a couple weeks, you can see it was really bad. And then, yeah, so it's just healing. It's actually pretty much healed now, but I had some raw skin here. And then, I live in Florida, so I got in the sun and a couple times I got a little burnt. So not burnt, but, tanned up a little bit. So hopefully that will weed its way through. Well, give me a lowdown on business calculus. I don't know. Never took business calculus. I've taken regular calculus, but I'm not really sure. I know I've had my roommates took business calculus, and they had to know the basics of calculus, but nothing. Obviously, it was a much more applied version of calculus. So applied scenarios and using actually the calculus to solve certain problems. But it wasn't very heavy, as far as I remember, very heavy into the calculus portion. All right, Nathan, you are very welcome, Nathan. Congratulations on getting a 96. That's awesome. Well, happy to help, Hashcat. It's very hard. You have to tutor. Come on now. All right, so let's go ahead and get into some of your questions that you guys have. So again, if you are interested in submitting a question, I pinned my link where you guys can go ahead and submit questions. Each and every week, I go live at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I usually talk about a topic, something like this, and then I go ahead and answer your guys' questions. Also, if you are interested in joining my Discord server, where you have some more questions that you would like to get answered before waiting until next Sunday, then you can go and check out the Discord link as well in the pinned comment. I believe it's up in the pinned comment. Yep. So go ahead and check out the Discord server, and there you can go ahead and subscribe to either Algebra 2, Algebra 1, Geometry, Pre-Calculus, Calculus, and other classes, and submit questions over for tutors and other students just like you to help you out with your math, as well as help other people out with their math. I always feel like, guys, if you're in Pre-Calculus, you can get help from people, helping you with Pre-Calculus, but then you can help people with Algebra 2 and Algebra 1 and answer a question here or there. It doesn't need to be we do have people that have a tutor role that they're full-time. They're trying to answer and help as many people as they possibly can. But then there's, I always feel like it's not just the tutor's job to be able to help other people. When people are going to bring questions, feel free to always chime in and help people out, because I think as you are explaining math problems or you're explaining math to other students, that's how you start to really understand things. And, the first question, someone's like, do you feel calculus 1 is hard? No. Do I remember when I first took calculus? Did I think it was hard? Yes. I was, I think actually I had kind of more of a persona of it being hard than I actually, gave it then I gave it credit for being. But I just believed. I was oh, calculus, this is a big deal. This is hard stuff. But it wasn't bad. But it's, it really didn't happen until I became a teacher and I had to teach calculus that things started to really click, right? When I had to explain things to my students, when I had to like create my notes for the next class period and like really understand the problems, like I could start how things can be connected. Because when you're just as a student, you're just kind of going through the motions. You're doing what you're being told, right? You're studying to do well on a test, but you're just kind of like going through the motions. And not always are you really kind of thinking in the broader terms of like to understand the stuff. Now, obviously when I got to calculus and I decided I wanted to become a math teacher, I realized, oh crap, I need to like know this stuff. So I did take it a little bit different approach. But for majority of students, if you're not like, hey, I just need to get a grade on this class, or, I just need this class for another class, you're not going to like be as concerned to like fully understand everything perfectly. Right. And so I don't know where I was talking about that from, and then to go to the calculus hard. But I think you can definitely, if you have the skills, I think one of the hard things for calculus, or what I had to do is I had to get a lot of the basics prepared. And the one thing with calculus is if you struggle with the algebra and trig, calculus is going to be hard. You're going to have a tough time doing the calculus. So make sure that you do the work. The pre-calculus and algebra 2 are going to be a great way to prepare for calculus. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the first question for you. All right, so this one, it looks like the student, I can't remember, had something. They wanted me to talk about something, determine quadrant it terminates in. So we're going to evaluate the sine and cosine of u divided by 2. So it says, given the cosine of u, okay, is equal to a positive square root of 15 over 8. As well as 3 pi over 2 is less than u, which is less than 2 pi. All right, so first thing you always want to do is graph the triangle in the quadrant, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So we have angle u, and that's going to be 3 pi over 2 between 2 pi. So that's going to be in the fourth quadrant. Okay, so that's going to be my quadrant there. Okay, and then let's see, cosine is going to be adjacent over my hypotenuse, right? So therefore, if I want to find my opposite side, I can say 8 squared equals square root of 15 squared plus, let's just call this, I don't know, y squared. Y squared. So we have 64 equals 15 plus a y squared minus 15 minus 15. And therefore, that's going to give me a, let's see, that's going to be 49 equals a y squared, and then square root, y is equal to plus or minus 7. But since it's in the fourth quadrant, we can say that's going to be a negative 7, right? Please make sure my math is all good. So we have a, so that's going to be, now we need to go ahead and evaluate the half angle for sine of u divided by 2 and cosine of u divided by 2. Okay. So again, this represents our angle u. So let's see if I can remember my cosine formula. So the cosine, or let's do sine. No, let's do cosine first. So cosine of u divided by 2 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 1 plus cosine of u divided by 2. That's under the thing. Square root of cosine u divided by 2. I think that's right. Please double check if I did that. It's been a while since I get this. Plus or, so we have plus or minus, and that's the square root of 1 divided by 2, and then the sine of the half angle, u divided by 2, is plus or minus. I don't have time, guys, to Google these, so please make sure, just verify for me. That's going to be 1 minus the cosine of u divided by 2. Okay, so really trying to appreciate your videos. Well, thank you, Victoria. I greatly appreciate that. Okay, so we'll talk about the plus or minus here in a second. But for right now, let's just go ahead and plug it in. So I have 1 plus, now let's plug in cosine. So again, cosine is square root of 15 over 8, right? So square root of 15 over 8 divided by 2. All right, now I think the student was having trouble like simplify usually with these. So a couple things that I usually like to do is like if I want to get rid of like fractions, I kind of have like too many fractions going on, right? So to get rid of this fraction, this 8 here, what I can do is let's multiply by an 8. Now, again, when you multiply by an 8, make sure you put that in parentheses. Now, you're going to have to multiply by an 8 on the top and the bottom. So now, when I do that, I'm going to get a plus or minus. This will be 8 plus the square root of 15 over 16. Now, again, using the rules of radicals, you can break that up into the square root of 8 plus 15 all over the square root of 16. Well, the square root of 16, guys, is what? 4, right? So again, you could divide by 4 or you can multiply by 1/4. So the final answer, I would say, is going to be plus or minus 1/4 times 8 plus 15. Okay, now let's talk about the plus or minus. So the plus or minus deals with the the quadrant that the half angle is in. So if the angle here is in the 4th quadrant, then the half angle, think about taking this angle. Like, let's pretend this angle is right here, right? And it doesn't really matter if it's like really close to there or really close to there. If I was going to take that angle and I was to divide that by 2, right? Which quadrant would that be in? Well, it'd be in the 2nd quadrant. What do we know about an angle that's in the 2nd quadrant? The cosine is going to be negative. So therefore, in this case, we're going to be dealing with the negative version of that answer because the half angle is going to be in the 2nd quadrant, which would be negative. For sine, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're just going to plug it in. So it's 1 minus the square root of 15 over 8 divided by 2. We're going to multiply by an 8 over 8. And this answer is actually going to be plus or minus. So again, make sure you use parentheses here. So it's going to be 8 minus the square root of 15. And then we'll just put over 4. Now again, sine, though, in the 2nd quadrant, right, is going to be positive. So therefore, this answer is going to be a positive 1/4 times 8 minus the square root of 15. And sorry, I'm probably in the way. So there you go. All right, so the next one says a number increased by 12 is 23. Find the number. So we don't know what the number is, right? So let's give the number a variable. And I think this is something that's very important for all students to be able to understand, like how to create something like this. So we have a number, right, x, increased by, that's going to be like added, right? We're adding to that. So a number x is increased by 12. So we could say like plus 12, right? We wouldn't say multiply by 12 or subtract 12 or divide by 12. Increase would be like adding 12. And that's going to equal 23. So now we just need to find that number. So now we can use our inverse operations. So we want to isolate the x. So to isolate the x, we're going to undo what's happening to it, which in this case, you can see the x is being added by 12. So I'll subtract 12. So I get x equals 11. Oh, and there we go. That's it. Hello, Mr. Brian. Thank you for everything. When I have a math test, I always come here and watch your videos. Well, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. So test me for my final. Need the help. I failed test 2 until 3. But William, you got this, man. You got this. I know you can do this. Put in the time, put in the effort. You can do this. Well, thank you, Mohammed. Appreciate it. Let's do the next one. So the next one says find the vertex, the y-intercept, and x-intercepts of the equation. Okay. So the vertex, that is going to be h comma k. Why am I not doing this in red? I always do things in red. Okay, so the vertex is h comma k. The y-intercept is when x is equal to 0. So the y-intercept is 0 comma y. And the x-intercept is when the y-coordinate is 0 of the quadratic. Okay, so we have this equation. So we have y equals x squared plus 6x plus 5. All right, now h comma k, that is for our vertex form. Y equals a times x minus h quantity squared plus k. Okay, so we need to find this in vertex form. Now you could do this in standard form. I prefer to like complete the square. You could divide the vertex here. You could take, if you remember, the vertex would be b divided by 2 squared. Wait, was that? No, opposite of b divided by 2a. Opposite of b divided by 2a, that's it. It's been a while since I did that. So the vertex, you could do opposite of b divided by 2a, and then f of opposite of b divided by 2a. All right, I'll do both forms because I'm not sure what class you're in and what you're doing. Let's do the first one is completing the square. So to complete the square, you're going to do that b divided by 2 squared. So what that'll do is that's going to create a perfect square trinomial. So you do 6 divided by 2 squared of 3, which equals 9. So 6x plus 9 plus 5, and then minus 9. And therefore, this is x plus 3, quantity squared equals, minus 4. Now, the one thing I like about doing the vertex form here is we don't need to sometimes this is a little bit easier, sometimes it's not going to be easier to plug this in. So let's go and do the opposite of b, so negative 6 divided by 2 times a. All right, let's see what that is. So that is going to equal, let's see what that equals. So this is going to be our axis of symmetry, which our x-coordinate is on, which is going to equal a negative 3, which from vertex form we could see is correct. And then if I did, let's do y sub negative 3. Let's change that to y instead of f. We're not dealing function notation here. So if I do y sub negative 3, that's going to be a negative 3 squared plus 6 times negative 3 plus 5. So that's going to be a 9. That's going to be a 14, negative 18. And therefore, you can see that's equal to negative 4, which is exactly our answer anyways, right? So you can see how that works. So the vertex, either way, is going to equal a negative 3, negative 4. Okay, now the x-intercept, the y-intercept. I really, really want you to understand something. The y-intercept, when you want to find the y-intercept, doesn't matter what the function is. When the y-intercept, x is equal to 0. Look at, right? X is always going to equal 0. We're looking for the y value. When we're looking for the x-intercept, y is equal to 0. Always, guys. Always. Okay? So all we're going to do is plug 0 in for x. Now, you could use the standard form or you could use vertex form. It doesn't matter. If whatever, I'm going to do the standard form because that's what the student gave me. But you could do vertex form. So therefore, look what happens. I have 0 squared plus 6 times 0 plus 5. Where are we at? Y equals 5. So the y-intercept is 0, 5. That easy. The x-intercept, don't really like this because look what happens. This is where completing the square would be a little bit easier because when you put 0 for y here, I get x squared plus 6x plus 5. So over here, it's easier because now you could just use your inverse operations. Here, you got to remember how to factor. And a lot of students don't like factoring. A lot of students don't like completing the square though too. So it's kind of like one of those, which evil do you want to deal with? So in this case, I'll say what two numbers multiply to give me 5, add to give me 6. So that'd be an x plus 5 times an x plus 1. Okay, so x equals negative 5 and x equals negative 1. So we have two x-intercepts, which is perfectly fine. So that's going to be negative 5, 0. And negative 1, 0. Okay. All right, next question says, find the y-intercept of the parabola. So in this case, I'm going to use the quadratic formula. So I could have y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so to do this, I'm going to use the quadratic formula as opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times a. All right, so opposite of b here is going to be a 2 square root of 2 plus or minus the square root of 2 square root of 2, quantity squared, minus a 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 2, all divided by 2 times 1. All right, so let's simplify this a little bit here. So we have 2 plus or minus the square root of 2 plus or minus, let's see what we get here. So 2 times 2 is 4. Square root of 2 times square root of 2 is 2. So 4 times 2 is going to be 8 minus 8 divided by 2. Well, that's going to be 0, right? So we could do 2 plus or minus, so what the heck did I do? That is 2 square root of 2. Okay, so I have 2 square root of 2. 2 square root of 2 plus or minus, and that's going to be 0 divided by 2, right? Well, obviously, then that's just going to equal a square root of 2. So my only solution is find the x-intercept, which is square root of 2, 0. And then question number 6 comes in. I do graded homework in class, but the day of the exam, I took the test and I kind of goes blank. What do I do? Better prepare. I think you got to do more problems. You got to practice more. Put in more work, put in more effort before the test. That is, when you're drawing blanks, that's showing you that you are not ready and prepared for that test and exam. So I would just, there could be some anxiety and stress issues with that. I think, making sure that you're studying in advance and not trying to cram at the end, making sure that you are getting a good night's rest and you're sleeping well. You're breathing like slowly, relaxing yourself as you come to the test. Obviously that play a part. But also I just think that it's very important to, put in the test, like put in that time and effort. Like this should be something that you're like, oh my God, I cannot study anymore for this test. Like I put in all my time and energy into the, like preparing for this test. So it's like, bring it on. Like I am ready to get this thing over with. And I think that's the feeling you want to be as you are walking into your test. Hey, that's still going to happen, right? You're still going to forget things. But the cool thing about taking a test is like when you are prepared, you're going to be able to overcome certain things like that. You're going to come those faults where you're going to get stuck on a question or forget things. But when you are thoroughly prepared, you will be able to work your way through it, right? You'll be able to slow down, regroup yourself, and think through the test. So I think those are definitely some just important things to keep in mind. And don't hold a grudge, for yourself. Like, I could be wrong. It could be something that's a little bit more mental in your state or in your example. And, just make sure that you are eating the right things, getting a good night's rest, drinking a lot of, water, and just mentally, maybe meditate a little bit before you take the test. Those are some things I would definitely say could help out. Well, thank you very much, Tilly. I greatly appreciate that. Brandon, I want to say thank you for helping me math. You are very welcome. I always come the night before the math test. Exactly what I was saying don't do, but that's okay. You're both helping me. Well, I'm very happy to be able to help you out. Very cool. Well, hello, Exploding Taco Cat and Charles and Tilly, your thing came through. How did that come through? Man, Tilly, that wasn't very nice. Well, hello, John. Math is easy. Just long time. Yep, that. And Janelle. Good to see you guys on. Thank you so much for showing up. Wow, there's a good little thing. So yeah, so if you're interested if you came in a little bit late, and you're interested as far as some of the things that I look into for cheating with my students, definitely go back to the beginning of the stream. I talk a little bit about that as far as some ways I've caught students previously cheating, as well as some things I've done inside the year. If you are interested in me answering your questions up to this point, then feel free to always go ahead and you can go ahead and submit your questions onto my brianmclogan.com Q&A, where I'll be happy to answer your questions each and every Sunday night at 9 p.m. I can't be able to get to every question, so I always ask the students to be very detailed and direct as possible. However, if you do not want to wait a week until my next live stream and you have something that's a little bit more urgent, as we know exams are coming on, then please feel free, guys, to take a look at the Discord server and take a look at what students are posting on there. Post your own questions, help each other out, and get your questions answered. I think it's a great resource as you guys are wrapping up this year from it. So, physics, I am no help for you in physics. I do apologize for this. This comes in my recommend when I have a test. Yeah, sorry, HH. That might have been the case. Good job, YouTube. Apologize for that. Hey, Kayla. Hey, Miss William. You've helped me countless times in math class. I take math more seriously in school now, and it's easier. Thank you. You are very welcome, Kayla. I'm happy to be able to help you out. And you're right, Nathaniel. You can't help people that don't want to help yourself. Very much. Yes, Jesse. I got your question. I haven't taught 3D vectors or graphing 3D vectors, so it's something I'd have to go back and review on. So that's why your question wasn't included from here, because it's something that it's been a while since I did anything with 3D vectors. So I'd have to review myself. And if you've been on my live streams, I don't have a lot of time to prepare myself for each and every question. So if it's not something that I'm readily know exactly how I want to explain something or how I want to approach your question, then I just have to skip it. And 3D vectors is not something I've worked with recently where I felt comfortable enough with my explanation to go for you. So I apologize for that. But, obviously I have a lot of experience with math, but, definitely not everything, or at least not everything as recently that I can go over on the thing. So, all right. Cool, guys. Tomorrow I have a quiz on conic sections and circles parabolas. I understand how to graph them, both, sir, but I still don't really understand what the concept of the conic sections. Well, I mean, the counting sections are really to kind of graph and be able to find their parts. I mean, that's, you know, that's really about it from there. Any tips on a prepare for a 5-week summer course for Calc 2? I try to get very good in basic Calc 1 and I feel decently. Yeah, I mean, I think just more examples and problems you can do for Calc 1 can be prepared for Calc 2. I think anytime you're doing a calculus-based class over the summer, it's just going to be difficult just because of the speed. You know, you're going to have to be grasping concepts quickly. I don't have any content on calculus Calc 2. Maybe something I'd recommend is maybe looking at some other people on YouTube that do have that course and trying to like self-learn as much as you can, because, you know, if you are not ready and prepared to take that quick class, it's going to go by fast. You know, you're going to be getting a lot of information. It's kind of like catching information out of a fire hose, you know, and if you haven't seen things before and you don't pick up things on easily, it might get overwhelming. So I maybe try to see what is possible for you to be able to do as much stuff ahead of time to get really well and prepared for that class. He answered my question. Oh, good, William. Well, I'm glad I could answer your question. And thank you again for all of your super chats. I really, really do appreciate that. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I'm glad I answered that question. And I don't want you to take that the wrong way, but I really do think that being as best prepared as possible is going to prevent those times when you go blank. And I think we can all relate to those times we've gone blank. And it doesn't matter if you do the best preparation possible. It's still going to happen, right? It doesn't matter if you have better prepared for a test ever than before. You're going to have those opportunities. But I think when you feel like you are in that point where you have overly prepared, you're going to be able to overcome a lot of those situations for that. Yes, definitely keep on practicing Calc 1, but then also try to do Calc 2 as well. Like, see what you can do on your own from that. I think it's very important. No, I've not taken a discrete math course. I've taken a lot of discrete math topics from there, but no, I think I think discrete math is definitely something that we need to explore a little bit more in our math education and go a little bit farther with that. So hopefully that is something that we will continue to kind of expand on from that. So. All right, guys, I've gone a little bit over on my chat than I am used to, but I got school tomorrow, so I'm going to have to let you guys go. Thank you so much for checking into the stream. I hope you guys have a great week. Congratulations, Jordan. Good for you, man. That's awesome. And I wish you guys all the best this week. And if you have not taken an exam, I wish you all the best on your upcoming exams. And if you have taken an exam and you've done well, congratulations. Just don't cheat, guys. You are better than that. I know you guys can do it. Put in the work. We are almost done for the year. And I have to hope you guys can have some great rest and relaxation in preparation for next year. And I hope next year looks nothing like it did for this year. But keep on putting in the work, guys. You're doing awesome. I'm happy to be a part of your journey. And thank you again for joining in the stream. All right, guys, I am out for the night. Cheers.